And I felt like it was just like every single thing that I wanted was being ripped away from me. And every single thing that I didn't even prepare for was happening. What is this? This can't be real. This can't be happening.
That's a snippet of my chat with Ali Levine. Ali is a celebrity stylist, fashion expert, TV personality. You may have caught her on Bravo's show, Stripped, and she's a mom to a sweet little 1-year-old girl. Ali reached out and wanted to come on the show because after having 1 year of motherhood under her belt, she realized how little the real and messy side of motherhood is shared publicly. She opens up that she wasn't exactly on board with the idea of having kids, but embraced her pregnancy and actually loved it. Until she went into labor, that is. Ali shares how her birth plan pretty much imploded from the start with an incredibly long and difficult labor that ended in a C-section. She also talks about her postpartum depression and how having the right kind of support system helped her get back on track. And she also talks a lot about how balancing kids and her career was very tricky at first and something that was really difficult to maneuver. So there's a lot of realness in this episode, so buckle up. Welcome to the This Is Parenting podcast, a show devoted to sharing the roller coaster journey of parenthood from moms and dads all over the world. I'm your host, Andrea Rhodes. Information and show notes about today's episode can be found at thisisparentingpodcast.com. Let's get started. Ali, I am really excited that you reached out to join me on my podcast. Hello, thank you for coming. Why don't you give everybody just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you're up to in your motherhood journey as of today?
Hey, Andrea. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love, by the way, like the name of your Selfless is Selfless. It just resonated with me immediately as a new mama. I am a celebrity stylist and fashion expert, TV personality, blogger, influencer, have many slashes, I guess they would say. I'm also a fellow podcaster and, as you said, a new mama. And my daughter, Amelia Ray, will be 1 this Wednesday, well, whenever this airs, but April 3rd, which I cannot even believe. It's just so crazy how fast it's gone. Yeah, I've been going through my own kind of crazy journey of what this is like and how different it is than what people portray it to be, and everything in between. And I'm loving it, but I've gone through a lot of, craziness between my birth and postpartum and anxiety and depression and so many things that like nobody really talks about in motherhood. And also navigating being a mompreneur and working from home and being a full-time mom, and just so many things that so many moms deal with that people, I feel like, just don't talk about. So I was very excited to come on your podcast and be a guest.
So you are one busy lady. That's for sure. So we have a lot to talk about because I have a lot of questions for you. And I know, just kind of looking through your Instagram feed and following you on your blog, that this motherhood journey wasn't something you were initially fired up about. I know when you moved out to LA and your career was starting to really take off, you weren't really sure if kids were something you were going to tackle right away. Is that right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's so funny because it's, everyone's like, oh my God, is that true? And I'm like, yeah, honestly, what it was? My career was my baby. And I felt like, it really felt like that was like my main, that was my main thing. And I loved it and I worked so hard for it. And it really, I keep saying my baby, but it really was. It was my first baby. It was something I worked so hard for. And I felt like it took me years to really get to where I wanted to be, and still climbing. And I wasn't ready to walk away from that. I wasn't ready to just say, Justin, my husband, moved to LA for me. He wanted to get married and have a family right away. And I was just like, no way. Like, I am so making things happen. Like, things are really happening for my career. I want to keep going. Kids will fit into down the road sometime. I don't know. We'll see. And I was very kind of just, I don't know. I was very just, I guess, aloof about it. I was like, when it happens, it happens. And in my mind, it was like, for me, it didn't feel selfish. For me, it felt like, this is my first baby. This is something I've worked so hard for. This is my career. This is my everything. And I want to see it all the way through, or feel like at least I've seen it all the way through, or to a certain point where I feel like in my mind, I'll just say, okay, I'm stopping and I can take a break. And now, obviously, in reality, I realize like there is no good time, and you'll never actually turn to yourself and say, oh, I'm going to take a break, because that just doesn't happen, especially when you're really passionate about your work and everything you're doing. Justin had talked to me for years about wanting a baby. He even asked me in the beginning when we first started dating, like, hey, would you want to have children? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, that's a deal breaker for me. Like, I need to know that you'll have children. And I was like, oh, okay, well, since you're saying that, I guess one day I will. And honestly, I said that because him and I were getting serious. I was like, well, I don't want to lose this guy. And I really like didn't know what the future held for me. And I was like, sure, one day, maybe when I'm like 40, I'll pop a baby out. And we talked about it and talked about it for years. And I just wasn't ready. It just didn't seem right to me. And to be honest, I don't think I would have even thought now I would have been ready. And I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I kind of just happened to get pregnant, like first shot kind of thing with my husband. And it was like, oops, but like, oh, like we were so excited, but it was like such a surprise. And I feel like whatever you believe in, God, spiritual universe, whatever, I felt like the universe for me really aligned. And it was like, you know what, this is the right time. And even though you don't know how you're going to do it, you'll be able to do it. And this is a blessing and everything. And of course, since I got pregnant and had my daughter, it has truly been a blessing. But at the same time, it was something that I think for me personally, I needed it to almost just be handed to me and said, like, hey, this is what you're doing, versus trying to plan, because I'm really bad about continuously planning work, planning work, planning work. And I am still learning now true work life balance. And I think that that's where I struggled the most, was like, well, when do I get pregnant and all this chaos? And it was like, oh, here you go, you're pregnant, now figure it out. I also was kind of afraid I wouldn't be a good mom, to be honest. And I guess I surprise myself some days when I see how well Amelia's doing. I'm like, wow, okay, I guess I am doing a good job. But in my mind, I was like, am I going to be a good mom? Like, so I think there was a lot of what ifs for me, and a lot of nervousness and anxiety. And so it was just, motherhood was something that was not like, I know so many people that tell me, oh my God, I got married and I wanted to be a mom, or I knew right out of school I wanted to be a mom. Like, no matter what, that was like their first thing. And for me, that just wasn't the case.
I can relate to that on a few different levels for sure. I was never one of those girls who babysat or had
Uh-huh.
baby cousins or
Mm-hmm.
really any experience with kids or babies in any way, shape, or form. So
Right.
I didn't have that maternal instinct, I guess, or that maternal
I'm with
drive.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Same with you. Like, I barely babysat. I had a few different people across the street that like I did it every now and again to make money, and but I never got like heavily into it. I never got heavily into like other friends' kids or baby cousins or anything like that. So same here. It was just something that in my mind it was like, oh, I don't see it for me, but if it happens, like it happens.
So, did you feel that a part of this fear of having kids was coming from how it could affect your identity as a person? Because you clearly have found a career in the passion that you love, which is fashion. And was that something that maybe deep within, maybe it wasn't so surface level, but maybe it was something subconsciously that you worried about how having a kid would alter that identity if perhaps all of your focus couldn't be with your passion?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's well said. I think that, when I was pregnant, I was so excited and I was like loving pregnancy. I had a very beautiful pregnancy. I was very blessed and I just loved every minute. And so when I was pregnant, I was like, still running around doing my job, and I didn't feel like obviously at all anything was changing. And then when I actually had her, so for those that don't know, I had a C-section after a 42-hour labor that I didn't expect to have. And it was very traumatic and very crazy and everything else. And in my mind, I thought, well, I will literally pop her out and she will go with me and we'll go back to work. And obviously, God and the universe and everything else had other plans, because I was on bed rest for almost 7 weeks, didn't drive a car for almost 10 weeks. I couldn't move for like the first 4 weeks. I was immediately put on like pause. And it was for me the first time in my life I felt I literally was out of control and couldn't do anything about it. And it was really hard and really scary for me. And I really appreciate you bringing that up about identity, because I really truly felt that way, even though I'm holding this bundle of joy who I absolutely I'm madly in love with and adore and can't stop looking at every 2 seconds and saying to myself, "Oh, we created this. Holy crap, this is insane." At the same time, I'm sitting there going, can't work. I'm barely answering emails. I'm barely getting on phone calls. I can't go to set. I have to send assistants to go see my clients. I can't even nurse my daughter. I'm failing in my job. I'm failing as a new mom. That was all going through my head. And I was losing my identity very quickly. I remember turning to my husband in bed, bawling, and I looked at him and said, I feel like I'm mourning the death of me. And I'm getting like emotional now because that my identity just felt like stripped away from me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to be a new mom. I didn't know what I was going to do about my fashion and what I was going to do about my career. Everything was in such chaos and a whirlwind. I'm madly in love with this new baby, but totally not in love with myself at all.
And that feeling feels so permanent, doesn't it? It feels like, all right, this is now my life and it's not going
Yes,
to get better. It's going to
heavily
be like
permanent.
this every single day.
Yes, yes, it's so true. In that moment, obviously, our hormones are crazy and everything's going on. And you're sitting there and you're going, this is my life. This is how I'm going to feel every day. Like, this is just how it is. This is it. And you just think in your mind. And, like, of course, we all listen to thoughts in our head that we shouldn't. And that's like sometimes the darkest place we can be is in our own head. And me, especially at that time. And I just kept listening to all these voices like, yep, that's what it is. This is what's happening. And who is this person? Like, I don't even know this person. What is going on? So much so that, and I laugh now because I'm sure my lactation ag consultants were like hysterical, but Candace and Candace, who run Goldilocks, who are my lactation experts, when I went to them and I talked to them about everything, I said, I realize I'm not going to be in fashion anymore and I'm not going to be in the entertainment industry. And I think maybe I'll train with you guys and become a lactation expert. And they literally both looked at me like I had, I don't know, 100 heads. And in that moment in time, like you said, everything felt so permanent and felt like everything was happening so quickly. I wanted to fix now. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait for an involvement. I didn't want to see what was going to happen. I needed to fix now. How do I get Ali Levine again? Someone said to me once, people don't realize that once a baby is born, a mother is reborn. And that like really struck a chord with me. It's exactly how I felt. Like I said, I was mourning the death of me. And it was like, since I was kind of reborn.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% because I think of myself and who I have become since having two kids. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't even consider what kind of person I would be lacking without them. I mean, I just would not be as evolved and, as good
Isn't
of a
that
human as I
crazy?
am. Yeah.
Isn't that, I say that all the time. She makes me a better human. Isn't
Hmm.
that crazy how, like, us as mamas, we realize how much better we are as people because of our kids? Because, like, and you're a super mom. You got two. I've got one. I'm trying to figure it out. It is just amazing to me. Like, Amelia hasn't even been in my life for, almost a year. And I am such a better person since she came into this world. I have evolved so much for the better. I was so content. My work. This is my baby. This is what I'm doing. I got, keep powering through. Everything's all good. Keep moving. And now I'm like, what was I waiting for?
Yeah, for me, it's empathy and perspective has been the biggest shifts for me with having kids. And it just kind of puts everything in the right lane for me.
It's wild. It really is. You look at your babies and you're like, I made you, but like you made me a mother. You made me, like you said, like a better person, a better soul. I needed these things to happen in order for me to take walls down that I didn't know I had up and all these things that, we go through in life that we don't realize are actually helping us get further to our purpose and becoming, like you said, a better version of ourselves. I'm like, how is she almost one? And somehow I am a better person. I am figuring it out. All of a sudden, those dark days are gone. I'm enjoying it so much.
Do you mind if we talk about your postpartum depression?
No, I don't mind at all. I mean,
Okay.
I'm here to talk, so no problem.
It's a passion of mine to bring this to light because I don't think we know how many of us suffer from just an array of postpartum issues. And so,
Hmm.
as much as I can, I encourage my guests to talk about it because I think it makes it more real whenever people are talking about it as
Of
often
course.
as it actually occurs. If you don't mind, I would love to hear, in your own words, what that postpartum journey was like. And I assume a lot of it had to do with the trauma of your delivery and your post care. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I do believe, and obviously we never know where postpartum depression comes from, but I do believe that it started with my birth. For those that may know me from being on a Bravo show Stripped and have seen the press and they saw my birth and people, for those that don't, basically people documented the fact that I had a 42-hour labor, that I started at my birth center, wanted to have a water birth because I felt very connected to my daughter in the water from my whole pregnancy, being in the tub and just everything I like read and felt. It just felt right. That's what I wanted in my mind. That was my birth plan, strategy, whatever you want to say. And it did not go anywhere near plan. I went from my birth center after 30 hours pushing to being told, this is not going to happen. This is not going to be what you saw it being. We need to go to the hospital. We need to get interventions. My husband turned to me in the tub and was like, I know this isn't what you wanted, but we want her to be safe. We want you to be safe. And if it's not going to work, then no, we got to go. And so in tears, I got out of the tub, wrapped me in my robe. We were able to drive my husband's truck to the hospital. My parents, I think, added to a little of my trauma, not by any means maliciously, as my parents, they loved me, but I'm their firstborn. I'm their only girl. They're very protective of me. And they did not believe in the way I wanted my birth. They're very old school. And lesson learned for me, I should have kind of drawn my boundaries and put my foot down and kind of said, you can't be here. But so I kind of think a lot of anxiety started there. It was a shit show. Like, let's just say, like, Bravo would have a field day. It was so, oh my God, it was just, it was seriously like something out of a freaking reality show. Like, it was just, everybody was yelling and fighting, and I'm just trying to like breathe and get through my birth. And now the thing was, that was kind of funny to me, was I was actually the most comfortable when I was natural and I didn't have any drugs and I didn't have everything going on, and I was obviously not comfortable is not the word, but I was okay, and I was healing, and I guess I was like handling it. And then once I got to the hospital and put in the wheelchair, everything got started feeling like tight and not together. And then it became just my doula, my midwife, and my husband and I. And after more hours of pushing, my doctor said to me, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to keep pushing. And he's like, all right, well, I know you've been trying to stay natural, but we need some kind of interventions now. The baby's not coming. Yeah, I know it's not what you want to hear, but this is just, and in my head, I'm laying there and I'm going, so every single thing that I checked off on my list I didn't want to do, I'm now being forced to do. And that was really hard for me. I have to say that in retrospect, I kind of wish I didn't make some non negotiables because I think I messed with my own head. That it was
Sure.
like I wanted A, B, C, and D, and I didn't get any of those. And it was like really mind fucking for me. And oh, like I can't do a water birth. I can't stay natural. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like it was just like, what the hell? And he's like, listen, we got to do like a Pitocin and try to essentially crank the baby out. And like, really, I didn't want to. And then put me on the Pitocin, and then I threw up one thing after another. And then finally, I was trying to push for more and more hours. Now we're at like 40 hours. And so my doctor, being kind of like funny and sarcastic, was trying to lighten the mood. And he's like, all right, Ali, I'm going to go to the gym. I'll be back in 2 hours. If you're, if you're not there, or, I'm coming. And I'm like, okay. So, he leaves and pushing and I'm pushing. And I'm getting so frustrated. She's like, I can see her head. I can see it. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And she's like, keep pushing. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know about you, but I just, when I was pushing and they kept saying, see your head, I felt like for hours I was being told I could see her head. Like it was just not happening. Sadly, at the 42-hour mark, he came back and he said, but if you really want to keep pushing, I will let you go to the next morning because she is not in distress and neither are you. And so if you really need that for yourself to feel like, okay, this is what we're going to do, then I will honor that because I know this is not how you wanted things to go. But if it was my opinion, like, you should just go and see OR tonight. And so everyone stepped out and it was just Justin and I. And I remember my husband turning to me and him saying, whatever you want to do, babe, you've been a warrior. Like, I never thought that you honestly would last this long or be able to do all this. Like, I'm truly amazed by you. And like, I will do whatever you want. Like, I'm here for you through and through. And I was like bawling and I was like, I really want to keep pushing. I really want this to at least end how I wanted to end, even if I didn't get to do everything else. And he just looked at me and he like punched my hand and he said, I told you I'm here for you. And all I want to say to you is do we want to meet Amelia tonight or do you want to wait till tomorrow? And that just like broke my heart. Like I just started crying and I want to meet her now. And it was like, I was so done at that point. And that's when he went and got Dr. Polyakin. He said, listen, you can prep her for the OR. She's ready. And that was a really hard emotional decision for me to make. And so I go in the OR and thank God he was so quick. She was out in less than 3 minutes. Thank God. And they put her on me. Like that was one thing I was like, not negotiable. Like, don't care. Put her right on me. And they did. And I got to, hold her for a minute on my chest before they took her and cleaned her. And my husband went with her and then I got her right back and, put her on me. And so I at least got to have that last bit on my, plan, I guess you would say. But I think that whole experience really triggered a lot for me. And then after that, coming home, again, in my mind, I'm going to be able to nurse my baby. I'm going to be able to take care of my baby. I'm going to be able to do all these things as a new mama. And before I even came home, and I'm imagining all this at home, they tell me I can't go home for a week because I had a very hardcore C-section. My body is going through a lot of stress. Well, and you're talking to a woman who didn't even want to be in the hospital in the first place. So now I've got to be there for a week. But it was just horrible that I felt like stuck there and hooked up, and no matter what I did, I had to stay there. And the first few days I couldn't even get out of bed. It was just like I felt like constantly I was being told no, even though like I wanted something else for myself. Because I had a C-section, which I didn't even know can happen when you don't have your placenta, I guess, pass through you naturally. Sometimes it doesn't trigger the hormones and let the milk come down. And so that was my case. And so Amelia was like barely nursing, like she wouldn't latch and she wouldn't grab and she wasn't getting anything. And it was a whole thing. And I had to end up pumping like not even 2 days in and pumping to get colostrum and tell my boobs like, let's go. And so I was so depressed because I wanted her to nurse so bad. And I like, that was something in my mind again, that was a non-negotiable. And I just felt like, again, every time I would go back in my mind to my checklist, everything was getting like crossed off instead of a check mark. And it was like killing me inside. Finally, when I got to leave the hospital after 8 days and go home, I was still struggling and I can't get her to nurse again. And I feel like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I can't get her on me. We call the hospital. They're like, literally say this to me, Andrea. They're like, sorry, you were discharged. We can't help you. I'm like, are you shitting me?
No.
Swear to God. Justin, my husband, like went through the roof. He's like, are you kidding? We discharged her a half an hour ago. Like he was so mad. No help whatsoever. Thank God I hired a midwife and a doula because Robin and Alexis stepped in like the heroes that they are. And okay, we will get you a lactation expert out to the house. We'll find you this person, find you that person. And they did. And like, that's what I was talking about. Candace, my lactation expert, Goldilocks, they came like right out to my home within 48 hours. They're helping me figure out how to nurse her. We're showing me what to do. And thank God between pumping enough and my body eventually responding and them teaching me, I finally had my milk let down after like 10 or 11 days. I was finally able to get her to nurse at that point. And then by like 2 to 3 weeks in of them coming to check on me, I was able to finally officially get her to fully latch and be nursing. That whole thing alone was so traumatic. I felt like, God, how the hell am I going to do any of this if I can't even do this? My mom tried so hard to be supportive, but because she struggled breastfeeding with me, she really wasn't the most supportive. And it just was her own shock and everything she went through for me. And so she really like was just like, it's okay, just do formula. And I was like, Mom, I don't want to do formula. And for any moms listening, like I am not shaming formula. Every mom does what they want to do. For me, I wanted and always wanted, that was one thing I always knew when I got pregnant, was I wanted to nurse. So for me, I needed that. And I needed to know that like at some point I would get to that. So when someone else would tell me just use formula, to me in my own mind, it was a cop out. And I don't want to say that and upset someone, but like that was how it was for me. And it really like bothered me that like other people were saying that to me. That's not what I want. I want to figure it out and I want to make this happen. And in the process, I was obviously pumping and my husband was like feeding her with that so that obviously she was getting enough and she was fine and nothing was happening to her. But I was really wanting to stick with nursing. I did not want to supplement. I did not want to give her something else. I wanted to be able to do that. My husband's mom she breastfed Justin and her daughter Jessica. And so she understood and she went through it. And so she was like, you can do it. It takes time. When I would freak out or have anxiety or get upset, she would come in and take Amelia screaming, calm her down, and then bring her back to me and let her, try to nurse on me again. I think that was really helpful for me because everything else was triggering me, including Amelia screaming. It's so hard when you're laying there in bed, you've had a C-section, you can't move. So you're just literally laying in bed. You're trying to adjust them onto and figure out how the hell to get them on your damn nipple. And you're like, come on, shove it in their mouth, give it it's like a joke.
And everything everyone's told you is that it'll happen naturally and the kids
Oh,
know what to do. The babies are
please.
so smart, and that's never
Oh
how
my
it
God.
is.
They say it happens for some and like, great, that's amazing for you. But thank you for saying that because when people say that, oh my God, it's such a magical journey. It just happens so naturally. Fuck that. It is so hard. And don't get me wrong, now I'm still nursing her and I'm so proud. And she's going on a year and like we're magically nursing. Now it is like a rhythm. It is so easy. It is like 5 minutes every time. Like it was like, I swear I laugh now because I'm like, oh my God, this is like the easiest thing in the world. And it was the hardest thing ever for the first month and a half of my life. Slowly but surely, you start to figure it out and you find your own way. But I think that all of those things and then like you said, losing the feeling of my identity and not being able to drive and not being able to do all these things on top of having this new baby. This is so not the picturesque moment I thought this was going to be. This was so not the Instagram moms that I followed. This is so fucked up. What is this? And for me, like I had to get off social media for like over a month and a half, 2 months. I had my social media team take over to just post, generic things that I had approved of. And that was it. I could not get on and stay on for long periods of time because it was truly depressing me. It was truly messing with me and messing with my psyche. And I felt like it was such a dark place because I was following so many moms who, good for them. Like they're showing that they're quote unquote living their best life, but they're really not showing the truth and they're really not showing what goes on. And they don't realize for people that are following them, myself included, that it depresses you and it makes you feel like, what is wrong with me? That like you have that perfect picture or you have that perfect image or your body bounced back where if I hear the word bounce back one more time, I'm going to lose my shit. That damn word bounce back. It does not exist. Like there is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of moms whose bodies, they're just very lucky. 5 days later, they can get back into their jeans pre-pregnancy and they have no problem. And it doesn't even look like they were pregnant. And like, good for you. Like that is a tiny, tiny percentage. And the rest of them, let's be real, have a trainer, have a nutritionist, have all these things, and they're able to look like that, or they get a tummy tuck or whatever. And that's great. No shade to you. Like, do you? Like, I think that's amazing. And one day I will have a tummy tuck too. Just be real about it. Like, don't just make it seem like this is just what I look like. It just drives me insane when mamas can't talk about this. And if you don't want to talk about it, then just don't flaunt it because people are so sensitive and moms especially and new moms especially. And when they're going through things like postpartum depression and anxiety and all these different lengths of their own feelings and you're just feeling all the feelings, you just look at everything and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Well, good for you for recognizing that in yourself that you needed to take a break from it. I don't know that
Thank
everyone
you.
has that ability to see that in
I had
themselves.
to. I had to. I was tripping out. Like I realized that like I would get on and I would just be looking at certain things and then all of a sudden Amelia would be napping and I'd be fine and then I would all of a sudden look at, the clock and it was like an hour and a half later and I'm sitting in my room still bawling and I'm like, fuck is wrong with me? I've been sitting here. I could have been doing work. I could have been sleeping. I could have been eating. I could have been exercising. I've been doing anything. And I'm scrolling on my phone, depressing myself and bawling my eyes out. Like, and that's kind of when I hit rock bottom and I was, okay, something is wrong with me. This is not normal. This is not normal in going through postpartum depression, but not normal what I was feeling for myself. What is this? This is not healthy. This is not safe. And I need to do something about it.
It sounds like from what you had planned for your birth and what happened postpartum, you had all of these hopes and thoughts and ideals of what it should look like and where those came from.
Absolutely.
It could be from a variety of different things. And then it seems, since hardly any of them panned out the way you thought they were, you turned them into these failures, and they weren't.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It just isn't what happened, you know? And so
Right.
then, like, it just piles on top of each other and piles on top of each other. And then you see somebody else who seems to be succeeding in the same lane, in
Mm-hmm.
the same time frame that
Mm-hmm.
you are. It just magnifies all of those little things and adds up
You're
to
right.
something that you just have a hard time overcoming.
No, you're right. And I appreciate you saying that about thinking of failure because it's true. Like I just remember over and over going, oh my God, I'm failing as a new mom and I'm failing in my job and I'm failing as a wife and
It's
I'm
all falling
failing as,
apart.
yeah, it's all
And
falling apart. It's
it's supposed
all
to
a
be the
mess.
best time of your life, right? Like,
Yes.
everyone talks about how it's
Right.
the best.
Right. And it's like, and in this fucked up way, it is the best in the sense that you're like, oh my God, look at this beautiful little thing. And I can't stop staring at them and look how cute they are and look at that cute noise they just, and then they fall asleep and then you're a disaster. Why do I hate myself? Why do I look at myself and I'm depressed? And then I got cystic acne out of nowhere and like my face blew up and felt like every single thing that I had imagined, like you said, in my mind that it was going to go, it was almost like the extreme opposite. And I felt like it was just like every single thing that I wanted was being ripped away from me, and every single thing that I didn't even prepare for was happening. What is this? This can't be real. This can't be happening.
Let's talk a little bit about how you were able to come out of it a bit. I mean, you're a year into it now, and it seems that you've been able to rise out of that darkness a bit. And maybe one step was taking a break from social media, but what were some of the other steps you took to kind of bring yourself back out? Or was it somebody else recognizing that darkness in you, or how did that process go for you?
Yeah, so I would say it was a few things. So once I started kind of recognizing myself, like you said, and stopping the social media, I realized that was kind of like the beginning for me of like realizing something is wrong. And then I remember my husband, I told you I turned to him in bed and said that that was kind of early on. And those kind of things kind of kept being said in different ways to him. And he started kind of picking up on like, all right, she's not acting like herself, like something's up and this isn't good. And I remember one time he came home from work and I like wear acrylic nails and I had pulled all of them off and not just, buff them or like, cut them, like legit, like just ow, rip them off and like didn't even know I really ripped them off. And he came home and they're like sitting on the counter. I like had a fit and I took them off. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know. I just like walked out and took them off. And he's like, what do you mean blacked out? And I was like, I don't know. And that was when I think it hit him. And he was like, all right, well, how about this weekend? You go get your nails done and I'll take Amelia and like I'll watch her for the day and like you get out, you go and do you and like you come home later on and feel refreshed. So like I went and got my nails done, I got a massage, I like felt amazing, came home, felt really good, felt like, okay, great, I've got this under control because me, quick fix, quick fix, quick fix. That's my personality. And that night, I just started bawling out of nowhere. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. I like hate myself right now. I'm just not happy. And he was like, okay, well, why aren't you happy? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like not present with myself. I'm not really doing help with you. Like you're doing everything with the baby and I still feel like I'm failing and everything and I'm not doing anything. And so we kind of had a conversation. It was like, all right, well, what do we do now from here? And why don't you reach out to like your community since you have a midwife and you have a doula and start talking to people. So I reached out to my midwife and expressed what was going on. And Robin said, it sounds like you're going through some levels of postpartum depression. I think you should see help. I think that, you should talk to someone and see if that helps you. So I reached out and I talked to Candace from Wax, and she was kind of my first therapy session and talk and everything. And I started out, honestly, I'm not someone that goes to therapy and I'm not someone that likes to feel like I need to. So it was a really big step for me and it was really hard for me. It took a lot for me to even go and talk to her about things. And I think she recognized that, being how strong she is as a postpartum doula and in her field and also being a mom. And so she was really good about just kind of keeping things light with me and having conversations about what I was feeling and kind of like what you were saying, bringing things to light and recognizing that they weren't failures and having conversations with me. And then after that, it was go on a walk, just get outside and reset your mind, count to 10, like try to do small things that like make you feel like you are regaining control in small areas. Try to meditate, all these different things. And so I tried different things to see like what would work and what didn't work. And for me, as I slowly found, I guess, my inner peace and felt like I was working through things, I recognized that meditation was a huge factor for me and still is. I try to meditate at least twice a week, if not 3 to 4 times. I try to meditate every other night before I go to bed, even if I end up falling asleep with it in my ear. I try to do it because it really helps reset me and makes me feel like I'm more present and more grounded. And it really helps me reset. CBD actually has been very helpful for me. I know there's a lot of back and forth on that with people and to each his own, but for me, and I, do it with the no THC. So everything I've read and everything I've researched with my doctor is it's safe for breastfeeding in moderation. And so for me, I do a little bit as I feel I need it to help the anxiety and help any kind of, waves of depression and things.
For those who aren't familiar with that, will you give a little bit more detail on?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right. I'm in California and everybody knows CBD, my bad.
Yeah.
Because everyone talks about it. I'm like, yeah. So CBD basically is a derivative from basically the marijuana plant, but it is not most that we have to check it. But the ones I use are non-psychoactive THC, which means you can't get high from it. It's just a derivative from the plant, which is helping you to be less stressed and relieve and potentially bring you to a little bit more of a calming state and just kind of like relax things really is the best word for it. And there are oils, there are gummies, there are drops, there's food. I mean, there's so many different kinds, especially in California, that you can get of CBD. And I recognize that when I started using that in moderation, when I would start to get really upset or get really anxious, it would just kind of start to bring me down and start to just level me out just enough just to kind of take the craziness off of me and just put me a little bit at ease and it's okay. And it would just kind of reset me. And so that and meditation. And then I do talk to someone every now and again when I need to, less and less now, but when I need to. And also just really being really mindful for myself. A lot of what I was told with therapy and things was being really mindful and being really aware what bothers me, what triggers me, and not fooling myself. And when I say self-conscious, like being like aware of everything that's happening. So like if I know that sometimes social media can trigger me, then not allowing myself to stay on there, like going on there to do my work, interact with who I want to interact with, but not living on the way there the way I used to because it can trigger me. And I need to be aware of that and being very true to myself to talking about with myself that like that is something that can be a trigger.
I love your story of seeking help because it highlights an area that I wish more women had access to, which was to seek professional help and therapy.
Oh yeah.
Because that just gives you the tools you need and the tool set, really. I mean, it's a big toolbox of ways you can try to figure out what works for you and gets you back to
right.
a normal level. And so you were able to try all these different tools that were recommended by a professional, and then you still have that access to that support system. And I wish I have so many wishes for postpartum care, but a big one is I wish that therapy came with maternity leave and it was
oh my
free
God, you
and
are
paid for
singing
and
my
access
prayers.
there.
Yes.
I think it's so important, and I've talked about it a lot on this podcast about how I feel that so many women just slip through the cracks because postpartum, it shows itself in a variety of ways, from something not so glaringly obvious to everyone to a psychosis type of situation and everything in between. And so it's hard to diagnose, and it's hard to self-diagnose. So I'm so happy that your husband was kind of noticing that in you, and maybe others in your life that was kind of able to steer you in the right direction towards finding
Yes,
that help.
definitely. Yeah, my husband, my best friend, my mother-in-law, like they all became very aware very quickly. I was not acting like me and I was definitely acting off. And, I think to echo what you're saying, like it's so true. Like we need so much of that. And for any moms like listening, it's okay to feel all these things. Like our society doesn't talk about these things, and they don't say like you're going to feel like this and you're going to go through this and this is what's going to happen. Like nobody has those conversations. And well, not nobody, but like the majority of people don't have those conversations. We need to have these conversations, and we need to make it very apparent for people to know like this is okay. This actually is very normal. Your hormones and everything. I say to my girlfriends now, I'm like, why didn't you tell me that I might have been a disaster
Yeah.
after I had the baby? I felt so unprepared. So now with my girlfriends, I have like 4 friends pregnant right now. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to rain on your parade. And I don't want you to be like, what the fuck when you're going through it. And I want you to understand it is 100% normal, and it is okay to feel all those feelings. It is okay to get help. It is okay to say no to things. It is okay to work on you. And for me, someone who was a workaholic and someone who was always in the public eye and doing all these things, I had to really let everything take a back seat and like rebuild my own personal life and my soul for like the first 4 to 5 months before I could even get myself back into anything, because I just wasn't in a good space.
So, Ali, we've been chatting for a long time, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I wanted to wrap up with a question because you are almost exactly a year into your motherhood journey. So, what has surprised you about how you parent?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I would say, well, first off, I honestly didn't think I was gonna be a very good mom. My mom is amazing, and I thought my mom is so, to quote off your Instagram, like so selfless. Like she's so all about everyone else. She's so good at all that. Like I don't have that in me. Like there's no way. And it was crazy how after Amelia came into this world, how selfless I really became, and she's evolved me to be. And I think that I'm a really good mother to her because I not only am selfless, teaching her how to be, independent and strong for herself, as a little, being. And I think that I trust her. I obviously she's a baby, but I trust in what she does and I follow her cues and I learn from her, and trusting in myself and what I believe in and what I'm doing and how I'm raising her, and really being proud of myself for really believing in myself and seeing that she's thriving and that everything I've been doing really is working and is correct, from, the sleep training to nursing and everything that I really wanted in that sense of motherhood, has really been working for her and working for her and I and my family. And now with her being a year, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best job in the world. This is the hardest job in the world, but the most rewarding and the most beautiful chaos you could ever be in.
Perfect. Ali Levine, thank you so much for coming. Why don't you share with my audience where anyone can go and find you and follow you online?
So you can follow me at Ali Levine Design, ALILEVINE, and then design, all one word, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. Really, if you just type in Ali Levine Design, you'll find all my social media platforms. AliLevine.com is my website, my blog that Andrew was talking about earlier in the show. My styling website is alilevinestyling.com. I am still styling, mostly remotely right now, being a new mama, but I am still working with some clients that especially want to do things remote or easier from home. And my jewelry line, if you want to check it out, is Hearts on Fire. It is with collaboration with Sterling Forever. You can search it on Sterling Forever's website, sterlingforever.com. Or if you search on Nordstrom's right now, it is on nordstroms.com, and it's called Hearts on Fire. And my podcast that I currently have is called Things We're Too Lazy to Blog About, which is with my co-host Amanda Lauren. And it's as funny as it sounds. It is all about beauty, lifestyle, fashion, everything that maybe we don't have time to blog about, and celebrity interviews and public figures. And stay tuned because my own podcast is coming soon. And Andrew will be definitely coming on as one of my guests in the near future. And hopefully I'll be launching around May, June is my realistic goal. And that is going to be all about real, raw motherhood and my journey and being an entrepreneur.
I love it. And I don't know, you don't seem very busy. You don't have very, very many things going on.
I don't, right? I mean, like, I'm just chilling.
Thanks for coming, Ali.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Ali Levine for joining me. I have linked up all her social profiles, her website, and her podcast, so go check that out at thisisparentingpodcast.com. And it would be amazing if you could leave a rating and review for the show. Those go a long way to help other listeners find the show that really need to hear it. Plus, it lets me know that you are out there and enjoying it. Thanks.